All right, good to be back after the long weekend. Spent it up north with my kids. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin with some breaking news. Eric Swalwell has announced that he now also plans to resign from Congress. Swalwell recognized an effort to expel him from Congress, calling it wrong to do so without due process, but then he resigned anyway. We're going to have more on this later in the show. Also, President Trump noted that only 34 ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, saying it was by far the highest number since the Iranian closure, or attempted closure, began. But which ships passed were selected by Iran, which is why Trump went forward with what he did. I'm going to have a lot more on this in just a sec. And a federal appeals court, as a moonshiner myself, has handed down a ruling saying that a 158-year-old federal ban of homemade production of whiskey, vodka, and other spirits is unconstitutional. But what does this mean for all the people who've had properties confiscated, who've been charged and whatnot over the last century and a half? But first, while the sky is falling, people were wrong again. Oil actually came down after Trump's Hormuz blockade. Let me tell you why. Let's do this. Well, the last 72 hours while I was off had been pretty interesting. J.D. Vance just departed the peace talks in Pakistan. Trump has now blockaded the Strait of Hormuz in response to Iran having a pseudo-blockade. And the main point of contention is that Iran wants a nuclear weapon.
It was over nuclear, very similar. Yeah, very good. I guess you're listening. It's over the fact that they will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard stop here. The only reason Iran wants a nuke is either to use it or to use it to negotiate more power. And they're not good guys and they don't like us, so I don't really feel comfortable with them having a nuke. But so Trump says, no, we're not doing that. And look, every president since Reagan has just kind of let this snowball. Obama did his stupid JCPOA nuclear deal that did absolutely nothing. It was like a deal on paper, and Iran kept enriching uranium underneath a mountain anyway, and they just said they weren't. Same under Biden. Now, Trump is like, no.
Yeah, I don't want to comment on that, but it won't be pleasant for them. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, just back to the Stone Age. So look, in response, he blocks the Strait of Hormuz starting at 10 a.m. this morning. I know. He was trying to open it up Friday, but that was under the condition that it would be open to everyone. Iran was only letting certain ships through, and like I said, some of them they were charging him like $2 million in Bitcoin just to pass. Trump was like, all or nothing. And now it's nothing. And all the experts, they freaked out. Wow, oil is going to hit $1 bajillion a barrel. It had this little initial bump at 10 a.m. and then it dropped right back down under 100. Why?
Many ships are heading to our country right now as we speak to load up with the best. Really, I guess you could say, somebody said the best and sweetest. I don't know exactly what sweet is, but when it relates to oil, it's a good thing. But they're coming to our country right now. There are many boats coming to our country.
This is why. Because the world's huge tankers are now mostly headed to America en masse. Look, I'm not one of these Trump is playing 4D chess people, but Trump kind of saw this coming because it's basic 1 + 1. He's also not stupid, okay? He's done these types of supply deals before prior to even being president. The world ain't cutting back on oil consumption. They're just never going to do that, okay? Maybe Europe will, and then they don't have power. But Trump came into office and immediately ramps up production. Remember this? To a point that we are pumping more oil than we consume for the first time in a long time. We are now doubling Saudi Arabia's output. Okay, Trump takes control of effectively who Venezuela exports to, and now this happens in Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, economists and scholars or whatever, journalists at the Washington Post, the United States is now the #1 most reliable and plentiful outlet for crude oil in the world. You're welcome. You're welcome, planet Earth. Oh, by the way, the more expensive oil is, the more wells are just weirdly being turned on because of that whole capitalist thing, because they want to make money, which is why there was more exploration recently that led to this massive discovery of a new oil field just a few days ago, 100 miles off the coast of Louisiana in the Gulf of America. Now, look, it's not good for the American family today. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's just not. But it will be in the long run, maybe the not so distant long run, like less than half a year. Because outside of the U.S., you know who the second biggest consumer of oil is? China. They are the biggest loser in this supply chain disruption. There are reports of gas hitting the equivalent of over $10 a gallon for them right now, which is a good thing because they are our global foe. And I know what you're asking. Oh, how does this affect middle-class American kitchen tables? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go through some of those reasons, which I have been extensively researching today. The first one is as much as $600 billion of intellectual property every year is stolen by China. And then they turn around, they produce whatever that product is at cheaper prices and then ship jobs, American jobs, overseas. This is with this new supply chain shift to China. Look, and now Trump can say, look, hey guys, we just cut off 25% of your oil supply between Venezuela and Iran. You want any oil ever again? You now not only got to buy it on the U.S. dollar, but you got to do it at our terms. And by the way, a strong dollar means lower inflation. Dollar goes further. Cost for Americans at American stores on American streets comes down. Oh, by the way, more countries invest in America bonds when the dollar gets stronger, meaning that they back our currency, and this makes interest rates come down dramatically. We got to can Jerome Powell. But once that happens, mortgage rates are going to go from $3,500 a month down to $2,500 a month. I mean, I know a lot of people that could use an extra $1,000 in their budget. This is the long-term effect of what Trump is doing right now. This is why I say, hold on just a little bit longer, folks. It sucks now, but it will get better. What also gets better about this is Europe. Europe needs energy too, a little bit, because they drive Peugeots and weird things. But Trump says, great, only if you hold up your end of the global defense. We don't want our troops defending you anymore, which is great. Let's get out of NATO. Trump can force that now because he controls the oil. Also, you want to know what Europe exports to the U.S.? A lot of pharmaceuticals. 30% of drugs come from there. Oh, you want fuel, Germany, for the Autobahn? How about you drop them prices on drugs to America? Okay, thanks. Also, hey, Germany, we buy, America, $100 billion in machinery from you guys, and we're trying to put up more nuclear reactors here to make energy even cheaper for American citizens. How about the 15% of global supply of those nuclear reactors we get from you? Make them in half the time. In fact, put us at the front of the list. We want them now. Again, hey, thanks, Germany. $60 billion in automobiles. Look, I work out at Equinox every morning. About 90% of the parking lot is German cars because it's Greenwich, Connecticut. But sure, it'd be nice to pay less for those too, or maybe produce them in America to employ more Americans. Also, you know how Trump keeps saying that there's going to be this Bitcoin reserve?
I signed an executive order officially creating our strategic Bitcoin reserve.
This is something I haven't heard anybody talk about. Iran was one of the top Bitcoin miners in the world due to their subsidized energy program, some of which was subsidized by Biden relieving sanctions, by the way. They were trading on Bitcoin to avoid other sanctions, too, just like how they're demanding it in tolls through the Strait of Hormuz. But since Trump started this bombing campaign, 77% of their crypto mining has stopped, which in conjunction to the Clarity Act, when Congress ever gets off their rear end, will be an explosion in the crypto sphere, literally making millionaires overnight and potentially generating enough revenue to partially offset our national debt. It's not just a war with Iran. Sure, they can't get a nuke, but there are so many moving parts here. This is why I keep telling you, guys, I'm putting my neck out there by supporting this. I realize that, and I'm in. I'm not BSing you. Just please hold out a little bit longer. As somebody who went to war and saw some of these things, you got to finish the job. We're in it. And if we ditch the mission now, it's going to be way worse long term. But on the flip side, Trump's got to do this stuff now. He's got to move. Realistically, in the next week or two, he's got to do something dramatic that changes the course of this. Bomb him to hell or do a peace deal. I don't really care. Either one. Okay, I like the bomb him to hell thing because it's realistically going to take 3 to 4 months for stuff to come all the way back down to normalize, and people are already taking on debt. Look, one of my good buddies, Mike, he owns a tree company up in the town where my farm is. He went from paying $1,700 a week in diesel fuel to $3,000 a week. That money comes out of his pocket, which means it's not money that he's spending back into the economy. Now, look, successful business. He's one of the few companies that can actually absorb costs like that, but not everybody can. But if you think Trump is crazy, like the libs keep saying, think of this. For once, the liberal media is actually working for Trump. I mean, they're too stupid to realize it, but they're out there. 98% coverage. They're always like, Trump is crazy or what, blah, blah, blah. Iran's watching that being like, wow, yeah, Trump's crazy. I mean, this is not like they're sitting there thinking some mullah in a cave with like one shoe on because the other one got blown up has been sitting there like, this is not the America I've been dealing with for 40 years. It gives Trump the upper hand. You got to be crazier than your opponent. And the very same people who in America want a 25th Amendment Trump for all this stuff, they're actually helping him. So thanks, libs, because he's dealing with some religious fanatics in a sandbox that have been basically very limited experience with an actual strong America willing to use military force to great extents. And now they're dealing with a guy whose own media is calling him crazy. So, clock is ticking on your civilization, mullahs. Chief Talent Officer at Overwatch Mission Critical, team guy Mike Sarraille, and the guy who smoked Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill. All right, both of you guys got no ties on today, which is a nice thing. I'm not sure about the hat, Mike, but, take it away.
I will just say Rob O'Neill 0, Mike Sarraille 4. No, guys, this is interesting. I mean, talk about making the Strait of Hormuz the actual center of gravity, and now the inflection point or escalation point for any strikes upon the U.S. will, the Trump administration and the Department of War will just ramp it up on Iran. So we've got some work to do with the clearance of the Strait of Hormuz, over 4,500 square miles. We know the Navy is up to it. We know that the classifications of mines for Iran are either, moored contact mines or bottom influence mines. So we can definitely do this. And I'm glad to see that NATO has actually found a spine. I'm sure Pete Hegseth is sending them a map of where to be very shortly.
Rob, though, a little bit of crazy is a good thing, especially if your enemies think so.
No, it's definitely a good thing, too, because what it all comes down to is war is a test of wills. And Iran went into this thinking they had a lot more leverage because they said they shut the Straits of Hormuz and they thought that we would just freak out. Because, I mean, the American media is against the president and the entire left is. And the media is going to say what they say and they're going to make it the worst thing in the world because, let's be honest, the left-wing media is run by a bunch of slack-jawed feminists. But the problem is Donald Trump's not a politician. It is a test of wills. Now he's going to go in with the finest Navy in the history of the world, and we're going to take it ourselves. And you know what? It's about time we had an America that can do this. We're going to go in there. We're going to say you didn't. No, just no. It's ours now. We're oil independent. We're sending our ships over to take this oil that we now own too. We tried to play nice. We're not going to play nice. You want to test the will? Here it is. Behind closed doors, Trump was saying for negotiations, we will take everything. Publicly, he said, we're going to take everything. Iran came back, didn't give us everything. Now they're going to get hit hard. We're going to win this. It's that simple.
Yeah, Mike, what is the next step? Like, what do you think that looks like? Are we talking a nuclear weapon? Like, is that beyond the pale here?
Yeah, I think it's beyond the pale. I think globally we would lose in the global public opinion court. But guys, all he has to do is strike the mission critical infrastructure of Iran to shut down this regime, the power of the desalinization plants. And unfortunately, the poor people of Iran will suffer at the hands of that. But, the tide has turned. The straits will open up. Now that NATO will get involved, it'll be a sustained maritime security operation. But guys, remember, we've been there since 1949. Fifth Fleet was recommissioned in 1995. We've always had a presence in the Gulf. Nothing's going to change with that. Yeah. But Iran is decimated, and the Middle East is a better place for it.
Rob, there's some intelligence assets are saying that China may be preparing to or trying to resupply some shoulder-fired like SA-7 missiles to shoot down American aircraft. You hearing anything about this?
Yeah, of course they are. And they're still angry about the opium wars a couple hundred years ago. That's why they were selling heroin pennies on the dollar to troops in Vietnam. They haven't forgotten about stuff like that. We're pretty much the only country that's an empire that refuses to fight the long war. China's going to help like they did in Vietnam. They're going to keep doing it. We can put a boot exactly where Toby Keith said we should anytime we want with them too. We're flexing our muscles, and look, we have till the midterms. Let's be honest. That's so. And again, doesn't matter why we're here, America. We are. Let's win this thing. We're just here. Let's win it.
Yeah, well, let's America up and figure out what happens. Hopefully we wrap this up in the next 2 weeks either way. Rob, Mike, appreciate it.
Love the hat.
All right. Still to come, Eric Swalwell bails on Congress after bailing on the California governor's race. We're going to have more on this breaking news with a former California Democrat who's flipped sides and been following Swalwell for years. But first, It's all too familiar. A conservative reporter attacked for covering anti-ICE protesters. We're going to have Harmeet Dhillon weigh on in just a second.
Did you know that the ultra-wealthy legally avoid paying, while most Americans overpay every year? That extra money is costing them their early retirement. That's why best-selling author Mark J. Kwan reveals the simple, legal strategies the wealthy use to grow their fortunes and legally avoid taxes in his book, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. Get your free copy of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes today with this exclusive Newsmax offer.
Allegiance Flag Supply believes American flags should be made in America.
Our symbol of freedom made outside our borders, that did not sit right.
Join us in our mission to keep the American flag truly American. Don't settle for flags made elsewhere.
Every flag is proudly crafted in the USA with superior materials.
Visit showallegiance.com to order your high-quality, made-in-America flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
It's April, time for digital spring cleaning.
I shall purge the clutter!
Whoa, use PCmatic. Our whitelist technology automatically cleans out malware and junk files without...
Delete the cookies. Delete!
Without breaking the computer. Get PCmatic. We clean the smart way. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies.
Visit PCmatic.com today.
Aging isn't something that happens later. It's happening right now. We age because our cells age.
Fatty 15 is a science-backed supplement that supports healthy aging.
And just one daily capsule has over 36 cellular benefits.
That basically acts like an armor for your cells.
Fatty 15 helps to reverse aging on a cellular level.
It's not about chasing youth. It's about protecting my health for the long term.
You want to take control of healthy aging? Fatty 15 is just the thing you need to try.
Well, Turning Point USA reporter Savannah Hernandez was attacked this weekend covering an anti-ICE protest in Minneapolis. Watch this.
What's going on here? This woman came up to me and she's screaming in my face.
Lights on, you
Get away from me.
You gotta go. You gotta go. It's time for you. I got it. Don't touch her.
Stop touching me.
These are the same protests that I was at when I went to Minnesota. What is weird is nobody came within an arm's length of me, probably because I'm not a 100-pound woman. But now the FBI is opening an investigation into the incident. Hernandez replying, for far too long, the violent left has been allowed to get away with repeated attacks on journalists. I'm looking forward to justice being served after what happened yesterday. United States Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dhillon. Great to have you back on, ma'am. This is incredible that we're actually having to have this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's all too familiar for me. I've been fighting for journalists under this kind of attack for close to a decade now, representing journalist Andy Ngo several years ago in an Antifa attack in Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've seen countless incidents like this. And, very concerning what happened to this young lady, this reporter. And I've been in touch with her team, and, we have an open investigation, so I can't get into any details. Sure. But my office is actively involved in investigating what happened and seeing whether there are federal charges that can be brought. Of course, FBI and potentially Homeland Security investigators also do their legwork and investigation. We analyze the legal claims. And so we're going to gather all the evidence. But one of the individuals seen there in that mob is somebody who I've already had indicted for the attack on City's Church in St. Paul. That's William Kelly. He's out on bond. This judge has refused to keep him in custody, although we believe he's a dangerous person who's done this type of attack in other cities, including here in the District of Columbia, allegedly. So, there's only so much the Department of Justice can do when judges refuse to keep communities safe.
And there's a full-grown man who shoves her to the ground in another angle of that video. It's crazy. All right, but this is also happening in Minnesota because the leaders are allowing it to happen. I mean, they've ginned up so much hysteria that this is it. Like, this is the result. Then you have people like Daniel Penny who get strung up on charges and have to fight for his own freedom because he, let's just say, rescued a lot of people from what could have been crimes.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, we have a confluence of many factors here, and the Department of Justice historically has been on the wrong side of it, I think. They've gone to court to punish cops who do their jobs, sometimes make mistakes, but in good faith. Mm-hmm. And then you have weaponized local DAs who are elected with the money from George Soros and other far leftists. And their goal is so-called social justice, not safety for taxpayers. Mm-hmm. And they have differential charging standards for illegal aliens versus American citizens, for minorities versus non-minorities, all of which is illegal under our Supreme Court precedent and Constitution. So this DOJ has been working to dismantle that anti-American edifice in law enforcement throughout the United States, but it's a many-year process.
Yeah, your department has been kicking tail recently, so I have to, tip my hat to that. But I want to talk about something that you said, you've been heavily involved with. President Trump moved to do this in the beginning of his second term, obviously, ending affirmative action. Particularly, you're going after Minnesota's affirmative action regime that implements sex and race-based plans to, quote, balance its composition of the workforce and all these things. What are you guys doing over there?
Well, look, Chicago has this. Many big cities have it. When I tweeted about Asheville trying to do this, they withdrew their policy, Asheville, North Carolina. It's like whack-a-mole out there. But the state of Minnesota has long had this affirmative action regime dating back to the 1960s and 1970s, a couple of bad Supreme Court precedents that wrongly interpreted Title VII. The United States Supreme Court more recently has held in Students for Fair Admissions and Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services that it's illegal to discriminate against majority people or anybody. So, white men have rights just the same as any minority or LGBTQ person. Yeah. And that's a very American concept. So we're going to court. We've actually had a very rare situation here where I asked then Attorney General Pam Bondi to certify that this was a case of national importance. And if it's a civil rights case of national importance, it can skip over the appeals court and go directly to the Supreme Court for appeal. It's a fast-tracked case. And it's the first time this provision has been used in decades in recent memory. And so we're looking forward to litigating this, and we're looking forward to overturning Minnesota's illegal discrimination against majority people in employment throughout the state.
Well, Harmeet, we appreciate you taking the lead on this stuff. Thank you very much, ma'am.
My pleasure.
All right, up next, more on the breaking news. Eric Swalwell now plans to resign from Congress. A couple of Californians who know him pretty well. Join me next.
A new president is sworn in. America's greatness is restored. Millions of Americans are tuning in to Newsmax. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific. Watch Newsmax or download our free app on your TV or phone today.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
when I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking Lipo Balance Support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Slotomania, the #1 free slots game, presents the iconic Betty Boop, featuring amazing reels, exciting bonus games, and grand jackpots. Yes! Download Slotomania now, play Betty Boop slots, and get 25 free spins and 15 million free coins.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
So far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election.
Until about 3 days ago, Eric Swalwell thought his televised fart was the worst day of his public life. Turns out it was only the beginning. You don't hate this guy enough, okay? I really just, I was one of the OG haters on this guy. Swalwell suspending his campaign after multiple women have accused him of sexual assault or misconduct. One of them is a former staffer, and now the Manhattan DA's office, Alvin Bragg, I don't know how they got into it, but they're officially launching an investigation into him, and I'm here for it. Swalwell posting on X saying, "To my family and staff, friends and supporters, I'm deeply sorry for the mistakes and judgment I've made in my past." But fast forward to today, Swalwell announcing that he's also now resigning from Congress, saying, "I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make." California candidate for Lieutenant Governor Gloria Romero. All right, Gloria, look, you were a Democrat. You're now on the ticket for Lieutenant Governor as a Republican, and you've known Swalwell since before the hurdler stretch was modified.
Actually, I have never met Swalwell. Thank God I was spared that.
But you've been in politics with him forever.
I'm familiar with him because he's a major woke political hack in California.
Yeah, but I mean, you've been in politics with this guy, so you've run in the same circles. Like, have you always known this guy was a creep?
You know, more and more as the information comes out about him, it appears that a lot of journalists knew about him. I suspected him back in the Fang Fang days. So this today is not surprising. It's actually very upsetting. But I do want to say that, make no doubt about it, people around him, the Democratic Party officials, the circles, they had to have known. And this was a protection action until they figured out it was going to come out, and they only made the change to pressure him because of the Democrat fear that a Republican or two Republicans might be in a gubernatorial runoff. That is the only. So I'm familiar with Democrat Party politics playbooks. That's why this is coming out now.
It's so crazy to me that the party would eat its own. But here's the thing is he's flipped on some of this stuff. Like, he used to be the guy of, like, believe all survivors, okay? And we've got tweets and everything like this. But now, all of a sudden, he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to fight these false allegations. And then the front runner, like, drops out after false allegations?
Right. And this was not him willingly dropping out. Remember a while back, the chair of the Democrat Party sent out a nice letter basically saying, drop out now so we can consolidate the vote. But at that time, they were still thinking the lower polling Democrats would drop out. That didn't happen. Then these issues began to surface. What we saw these past few days was the equivalent of the Godfather sending the horse's head, this time not to a low polling Democrat, but actually to the front runner who people had projected being in the run. That's how serious these are. Remember as well that Congress and the state legislature in California, they have refused to release the list of every legislator who has had to settle sexual harassment or assault cases. And that should be released right away. No more excuses. Begin with Swalwell, but I'll bet there are many more.
100%. And like Anna Paulina Luna, she's been on the front runner of that. She's been, calling for, obviously recently calling for Swalwell, and now he's gone, so he doesn't have to worry about it. But all this, he's also accused of violating employment and immigration laws to keep his live-in Brazilian nanny in the United States. DHS is opening investigation, but does it end?
We thought it would end with Fang Fang, but obviously there was a whole lot there. It was the tip of the iceberg. But once again, it goes further than that. It's just a party of hypocrisy. And this is one of the reasons why I walked away from the party. As I said, the party left me. I didn't leave the party. It became one where it was hypocrisy, Orwellian, double talk, and the rules of the game were used viciously against Republicans, not so much Democrats. So I never wish ill on anybody, but honestly, let this be a lesson to Swalwell and all the other sanctimonious legislators out there pointing the finger at President Trump or Judge nominee Kavanaugh saying bad people. I think we have to stop and look in our own closets and see what's there. And as I've said, this was a CYA effort and it backfired, but Swalwell's gone. Keep digging because I'll bet there's more.
Oh, it's still coming out. Gloria, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in host of Savage Nation, California resident himself, Michael Savage. Sir, I mean, now we've got, the wannabe Batman Katie Porter who swears at her staff as the frontrunner for the Democrat Party.
Well, you see, she will tax anything with a pulse, which will causing a new exodus of Californians that will make the Charlton Heston version of Exodus tiny by comparison. I'll be one of them in that long march through the Red Sea. Because if this monster feminist crazy should become governor, she will make Gavin Newsom look like Ronald Reagan in retrospect. I promise you that. Everyone will say, God, those were the really good old days. She's an acolyte of Elizabeth Warren. She's known to be unhinged. Her own ex-husband says she's crazy. We know about the throwing things, the yelling. But that's not, unto itself unusual in the political world. The thing is, her politics. Well,
you don't treat people
behind
like that.
But behind the scenes, people in politics are generally pretty unhinged.
Yeah.
Pretty unhinged. I wouldn't say the highest level of humanity seeks a world in the political arena in most cases. But so she is not stupid. This is the problem with her. She does have phenomenal credentials. I mean, let's not underestimate. She graduated from Yale. Wasn't easy, even though we know their politics. She graduated Harvard Law. Again, we don't like their politics, but it's not easy to get a degree out of Harvard Law. And she's taught law at several universities. But the thing is, she studied under Elizabeth Warren, who we well know
the worst.
Is a nutcase. And so Professor Porter will be a tax and spend Democrat, which is only one part of the problem. The reason California has wound up in this position is because it's a one-party state like New York and Illinois and several other states. The whole structure of our government depends upon a loyal opposition that can, let us say, slow down the other side when they get out of control.
Yeah.
And once the people like Pelosi and Willie Brown gamed the system and figured out how to tilt the pinball machine so they could never lose, everything became horrible in the state of California. I once had a pinball machine in my house, and you know that if you move it a certain way, you can lift it a certain amount where the ball will stay horizontal, and you can do almost anything you want with it, and you can run the game forever. That's California politics under Nancy Pelosi.
No, it is. This is just breaking news coming into my ear right now. According to the United States political reporter Reese Gorman, Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who is like the Republican version of, I don't want to say the Republican version of Eric Swalwell, but has some problems. He's now planning to retire tomorrow. Now, Gorman reporting the official announcement is coming soon, but it's like, it's a 1-for-1. Swalwell gone, that seat will probably go to a Democrat. This guy gone, it'll probably go to another Republican.
Well, look, politics is a vicious blood sport, as we all know. And I was told 50 years ago when I knew somebody, when I was living in another state, who wanted to run for politics, they said the minute you run for, he was an environmental guy, a nice guy, and they told him the minute you run for office, the world's going to fall in on your head. They will find things about you or make things up about you. You will be crushed.
Yeah.
The system will not permit an outsider like you to get anywhere. So Swalwell was doing well, and then they decided he was not electable. So they dropped this. It's his own party that did this to him, apparently.
Is. No,
yeah.
it's crazy to me, but you know what? Couldn't happen to a better guy. Michael Savage, appreciate it, sir.
Exodus. Just think of Charlton Heston and Exodus. I'll be in that march.
All right. Coming up, Mark Kelly, the same guy who successfully flew with an all-white male crew, now claims it would be a disaster to have the same crew. He's either a liar or mentally ill or just a Democrat. All that and more in our Culture Clash.
I'm Michael Savage, and I was conservative before conservative was cool. Do you realize how crazy the liberals in this country have become? I do. You want to get me started today? I'll get started. Watch Michael Savage and the Savage Nation every Sunday night.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for, a simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Here at Allegiance, we feel like American flags should be made in America.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags were actually being made overseas.
Every flag we make is proudly crafted in the USA with superior materials.
Join us in our mission to keep the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to order your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
It really must be exhausting to be a Democrat these days. Senator Mark Kelly enjoys slandering, quote, white service members because of his liberal, suicidal empathy. I don't know. Roll this.
When you're the commander, you get some say in who your other crew members are going to be. So the last thing I would want in a space shuttle crew would be 7 white guy, U.S. Navy test pilots like me. It would be a disaster.
All right. So this white man who flew rockets now wants people who fly rockets to be chosen based on their race and gender instead of whether or not they will hit the planet that they're aiming at. I mean, yet ignoring the data that every U.S. commercial flight crash with onboard fatalities attributed to pilot error since 2000, since the 25 years, has been due to women and minorities, which only represent 10% of pilots. 50% of them, the factors were among the diversity hires. Unbelievable. Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield, host of the Grace Curley Show, Grace Curley herself. Grace, okay, Mark, you said that at Al Sharpton's National Action Network.
Yeah, this is the only way to prove that you're one of the good white guys, is to talk about how much you hate other white guys. It's really a weird thing to watch. And you're right, Carl, when you see everything through the prism of race, you kind of inadvertently expose your own bigotry. And I also would just ask Mark Kelly, like, how does he even know what a man is? He says he wouldn't want to be on a mission with 7 other white guys. Would he just assume that they're guys? Is he a biologist? There are so many questions here. But the point is, when you're partaking in this liberal ideology, everything's insane, and they've lost most Americans because they've lost common sense.
Right. Ashley, but it's always... This is the thing, though, with this whole, like, race battle. It's like, look at me, I'm a minority, give me special treatment. And it's always somebody else. It always becomes someone else's. This lady, her parents, unfortunately, went to a hospital in L.A. Neither of them spoke any English, which is its own problem. But the hospital apparently didn't have any interpreters on staff because that costs money. So they had their daughter translate. I know, God forbid. She was offended that when the doctor suggested that her parents learn the native language to the country. Watch this.
She decided to give me a comment and say, you should really teach your parents some English so they can learn how to talk in the hospital and communicate and stuff. I don't know, but considering that everything's going on with the political climate, maybe I'm just reaching. But, you know, Spanish is the secondly most common language spoken in LA.
It's America. Speak American.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, you can thank Joe Biden for this, for letting 20 million illegal immigrants into the country. And that's what we're having to deal with at this point. I understand there's a large Hispanic population outside of LA and around the surrounding areas. But at the same time, there is a standard when you enter into a country. You know, we have borders, you learn the language, you assimilate. We had the same conversation over Minnesota Somalis, where you assimilate into the community. You don't become an insular, you know, community where you keep everything culturally the same, but you move into the country and gain all the benefits that come with it. So I think that's the standard that I think a lot of Americans agree with, and that should be this, you know, maintained at this point.
Fact. Video of Canada's Mark Carney has been circulating of him touting Canada's independence. I don't have time for the soundbite. That he doesn't need America, which is funny because his daughter is studying at Harvard, which is in America. Over 91% of his investment portfolio is in the U.S. He has only money in 3 Canadian organizations. And the largest asset manager, Brookfield, just left Canada and came to the U.S. I guess he does need America. Grace?
Yeah, he's obsessed with us. He's obsessed with us. This is like the woman who tells you, oh, I've moved on from my ex-boyfriend, and then you go to dinner with her and she has like 3 glasses of wine and she just won't stop talking about him. And you're like, oh, this is how much you've moved on? Is this the entire conversation? Ever since Trump called him the governor and called, you know, made fun of Canada and said we were going to take over, they have just not stopped. But you're right. It's all fake. They know how much they need us. And we just keep proving it day in and day out. It's like, keep talking about us. Isn't that what Nicki Minaj said? If you keep talking about me, my haters, you're just making me more powerful.
Have you considered suicide? I mean, it's an option in Canada. Ashley, Grace, we got to leave it right there. We appreciate both of you. Thank you. This is huge. Newly declassified documents from DNI Tulsi Gabbard to Just the News finds that the CIA analyst who, in 2019, the whistleblower complaint, claimed that Trump leveraged Ukraine policy for political gain. Ultimately, that led to Trump's impeachment. The whole thing was based on complete hearsay, and that the whistleblower had a potential for bias. And they knew about this during the impeachment hearing. Investigators were concerned with the whistleblower's motives, noting that he was a registered Democrat who worked closely with Joe Biden on Ukraine, and even told investigators that I do not have direct knowledge of private comments or communications by the president. President Trump addressed this today, actually.
Bunch of crooked people. You're talking about with respect to all of the things that they put against me? Well, it's a very serious charge against them and the Democrats. They cheat.
The entire first impeachment was all BS. All right. Coming up, after years of open borders and sanctuary state handouts, common sense reforms are finally kicking in. What's happening in Illinois? We're going to break that down in a sec.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beets, and I swear by it.
Super Beets is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beets.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
As Americans, we're fair and logical. 83% of us favor requiring a photo ID to vote. In fact, most of the civilized world requires it, but not us. We need to be able to trust that only eligible Americans are casting ballots. Democrats oppose voter ID for no coherent reason. Republicans favor it but haven't acted. What are they waiting for? Call your United States senators and tell them to pass the Save America Act today.
I wish I loved my smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish money wasn't so tight.
I wish I can justify the cost.
I wish my insurance could save me more on dental implants.
See what it can do at ClearChoice. Show us your insurance card and save $5,000 on fixed full double arch implants. That's insurance assurance on a smile that's built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing. And now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Math is a funny thing, because after years of taxpayer-funded handouts, the free ride is literally running out of gas. Illinois now warning more than 16,000 non-citizens, maybe illegals, could lose state-funded food assistance as budget pressures continue to mount. Lawmakers who once championed the program are scrambling to keep it afloat, while critics say the taxpayers have been footing the bill for too long. That's why they're leaving. Funny, it's just so weird that when math sits in, they just can't pay it. Former DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin. Trish, it's almost like weird. I told you so.
We were reliably told by the left time and time again illegal aliens weren't taking SNAP benefits, weren't taking Social Security, when in reality the White House Office of Management and Budget found that nearly 60% of illegal alien households were taking welfare benefits from one or more programs. And Carl, how do they do that? It's because when they're applying for these welfare programs, they're not doing it based on their individuality, what their immigration status is. They're doing it as a household. So as long as there's at least one person who's legally in the household, they're getting those benefits.
Yeah. No, 100%. Another thing, check this out. Everyone said it couldn't be done, but Stephen Miller confirmed that the CBP will be completing a milestone of a 1 mile of border wall per day. I mean, that's crazy.
It's fantastic. It's exactly what President Trump ran on and promised and is now delivering for the American people. And the way that they're doing this, though, Carl, is so smart because they're using the existing wall that they already have. They're looking at areas of high traffic where there should be a primary wall and a secondary to make sure that those illegal aliens, those cartel members, those criminals aren't coming over. But they're also smartly using technology to making sure that there's a detection movement, but also making sure we're not solely reliant on that technology. And why is that important? Because if Republicans don't remain in power, we don't want the next Democrat administration to be able to turn that technology out and let our country be flooded by these illegal aliens.
Yeah, it just seems to me like almost like it was just a matter of will and not ability to secure that border. But what do I know, right? So here's anyone who may have forgotten this, Trish. Congress has just returned from recess, and DHS still remains shut down. And we were talking about this in our meeting this morning. People were like, oh, yeah, like all this other news. Yet DHS still not funded.
It is absolutely crazy, especially, Carl, during a time of war. The fact that the Department of Homeland Security is shut down, which prevents terrorist attacks. It's been more than 50 days. This is the longest shutdown in American history. Congress needs to get to work. They need to find a deal. And I'm concerned about October because that's the next day. That's the next timing for that fiscal year for 2027. That's right before the midterms, Carl. I think the Democrats are going to take this leverage. They're going to try and shut down the Department of Homeland Security or, God forbid, the government all over again and try to reap those cheap political points from it.
But this is the problem. It's like you've got airports awry. Like, what is it? 90% of Congress probably takes a plane pretty much every Sunday and Thursday. I mean, is this not hitting them?
I think it's not hitting them. I'm sure a lot of them are hitching rides from their donor jets, and otherwise they're getting deals from Delta or American Airlines where they're escorted straight through. That's got to stop. The American people have had to deal with, for more than 40 days, slowdowns and massive lines, and that could have imperiled the American people's national security. Thank God we haven't had another terrorist attack. But it's not just TSA. It's not just CISA. It's FEMA. We're coming up on hurricane season. It's the U.S. Coast Guard. I mean, CBP and ICE, of course. I mean, these are essential agencies, and it is shameful that Congress has let this go on so long.
Yeah, no, well, hopefully they get their act together. Trish, we appreciate it.
I hope so. Thank you.
Folks, the April 15th tax deadline is Wednesday, and remember, millions on welfare depend on you paying your taxes. So before you file, you may want to take a look at this book. It's called Deduct Everything. Pay the IRS the least you can possibly do. It explains the impact of the Trump-era tax cuts, which are huge, along with a wide range of deductions and tax-saving strategies. Look, a lot has changed. Even my accountant is like, wow, the big, beautiful bill changed a lot. So including the standard edition, estate tax thresholds, business deductions, and retirement strategies. So it's so important to understand what legal loopholes you can take advantage of. And I also love just sticking it to the IRS. So Deduct Everything is available in bookstores and on Amazon. But you can also check out our free offer here at Newsmax. Be sure to go get yourself a copy. Pay the IRS less. Before we go, another reality star unfortunately dead. It's a, dare I say, big problem. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today, I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy 1 bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy 1, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Seriously, folks, this is a huge problem. Since the show began in 2012, as many as 25 people featured on TLC's My 600-Pound Life have died. And you can add another one to the mix. Dolly Martinez, who was featured in the season of 10 months of the show, and died this month of congestive heart failure. She was 30 years old. This is the problem with shows like this. They're glorifying these unhealthy lifestyles. I don't know what she did to her hair either, but like, this is the problem. You have people like Jillian Michaels and shows on like The Biggest Loser who are vilified for calling out fat people. Like, you're not allowed to call fat people fat anymore, and now you have people like that dying. Like, we're not doing it because we like to make fun of fat people, but we are doing it because we don't want them to die, Rob, of heart attacks.
We have a real problem in this country with the food and with there's a lot of issues.
Did you know
that's
the average American is fatter than the average pig? More body fat.
What?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
More interesting moments with Carl. I had no idea about that one.
Welcome back to me.
Yeah. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Word, Rob.
All right.